Okay, hello friends. Welcome back. And today we'll talk about the concept of gratitude, but we're going to take a different approach to gratitude in the sense that, and I call this gratitude on steroids, which is typically when gratitude is discussed, it's the notion of being thankful and thinking about the things that we're grateful for. But what I'm going to suggest is this is a neural network that you can grow and like any neural network, as we've discussed, it's a function of time and feedback or time and emotions. And so the more time you put into this process, the more these neural networks will grow, especially in the orbital prefrontal cortex. And then it will be there to serve you automatically because it'll be very instantaneously will pop up when you may have a triggering circumstance. And again, I refer over and over again to three big categories of triggers, which is thoughts, people, and situations. That's it, right? And so if there's anything that we perceive as being negative, if we develop this gratitude neural network that's ready to pop up anytime there's negativity, you'll always divert that either negative thought, negative person, negative situation. Instead of going right to your lower brain, your limbic system, it'll divert and filter through the gratitude network before it goes down to the threat assessment center. And so it's very important, probably one of the most important things to invest time in, and that is various aspects of gratitude, various things to be grateful for, but then to also quantify it, have a number of times that you do this. Every second that you do this, it's a branch of a neural network, especially if you can conjure up your emotions, as we talked about in previous videos. Emotions contribute to neuroplasticity. And so if you can really feel with joy and love, which is a follow-up to the previous video on love, if we can really feel love and feel joy about the things that we have, it further amplifies those neural networks, expands this system of perspective and filtering, and allows it to be a resource that's available subconsciously and consciously quite readily. And eventually we can continue to filter all of life through that neural network in our orbital prefrontal cortex, which is the storytelling machinery of the brain. Okay, so that's the overall concept, and I'm going to give you some ways to do that. But here's the to put it in perspective. This is the orbital prefrontal cortex identified here, and it's kind of in the left part of the brain behind the orbit, right? The eye orbit. So left prefrontal cortex. And the idea is that, by practicing this habit on a regular basis, we can prevent negative thoughts from activating our lower brain. And that really keeps us stable and it keeps us very regulated. But it's a numbers game. It's how many episodes and how much emotion you put into visualizing this network into your brain. And so gratitude is one of the most powerful tools to activate the higher brain. And it's even more powerful when you do it as a neural network. That's why we refer to this as gratitude on steroids. Because in fact, when we have a higher brain activation and we stay in a higher brain mode, we have a go feeling. And then that's driven especially by the mid cingulate gyrus, the anterior mid cingulate gyrus, which is the go, no go kind of signaling. This is command central in a sense of determining whether we put energy into things or withdraw, right? So, in fact, when we are feeling really good about life, we produce more DHEA, which is a anabolic steroid that actually makes us more engaged with life. More systems are activated. We're in go mode. And so gratitude is very powerful and is, in fact, producing stimulative steroids for us to be engaged with this world. And so here's an example of what I do. And I'm thinking about this checklist all the time. And so this is a habit that allows me to filter all life circumstances through this checklist. And I'm like, you know what? I have infinite happiness available to me always, no matter what the circumstances, a chore. I have to give up my time. I have to give up money. I have to give up opportunity. I have to give up status, like all the things that, the dopamine system is trying to hang on to. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I have infinite access to happiness. So A means activate and asleep. I'm grateful for when I have good rest. I get to sleep, but I'm also have the ability to activate my higher brain in an infinite way, right? So every moment, even if I'm doing a chore, I'm doing something boring, I'm stuck in line, I'm stuck in traffic, I can be activating my higher brain with a variety of tools that we are teaching on this platform. So that gives me infinite access to happiness. I'm grateful for that tool and insight. Brain, I mean, I have infinite access to knowledge now with a combination of smartphone and internet and now AI. Like I have so much access to knowledge that I'm constantly growing neural networks of knowledge. Creative joy. I can constantly put ideas together and people together and energy together. And so I can keep being creative, whether it's artistically or in terms of writing or learning or building this program, or we all have infinite access to being creative once we start to get, lower brain fear and control out of the way. But if we realize that we have infinite happiness, we don't have to worry about loss so much. And that starts a virtuous cycle of us being able to take risk, take self-awareness and growth risk. That's creative. That's building a neural network. Take innovation risk, take learning risk, take relationship risk, take difficult conversation risk, take leadership risk, take happiness and spiritual risk, which the risk of maybe failing, the risk of maybe wasting time. But as we realize that we have infinite happiness available to us at all times through gratitude neural networks, it allows us to take a little bit more loss, right? Take a little bit more failure, loss, rejection in terms of creative joy. That's a positive cycle. You know what? I have enough. I'm not worried about loss. So let me take a little bit of risk creatively. It worked out. I built something or built something outside or built something in a relationship. That's a positive cycle that the gratitude checklist can unleash. Uh, Diet and dance, meaning I'm so lucky to be able to have food and not be hungry. Now, I know not everybody is in that situation and we need to help them, but diet and the ability to unlimitedly be creative in making food and making it delicious. Dance reminds me that we now have basically unlimited access to music and reminding ourselves that when we move with music, that is also really creates a sense of joy and a go mode and recognize that, you know what? Most of us can just turn on the right song and it just makes us feel really good. Wow, we have infinite access to that form of happiness. Exercise, if you are able to be moving and maybe do some calisthenics or walk. You just gratitude for being able to be mobile. Entertainment, we now have infinite access to streaming platforms. Obviously, we don't want to spend all of our lives on there because that's passive pleasure and it's kind of more level one dopamine versus the higher levels, level two, three, four, five, and six are more active happiness and they produce much more happiness. So, but sometimes taking a break and sometimes losing ourselves in another world is nice, as well as access to emotions. As we expand our emotional centers, we feel more joy, we feel more love. Yes, there's a risk of feeling more pain and sadness and anger and these kinds of negative emotions, but we're getting better and better at reframing those and anchoring in the higher brain so those dips aren't as painful or and don't last as long. Friends, family, finance, meaning do we have enough funds for food and shelter? That's the main thing that matters. And as you become more and more higher brain dominant, you become more able to sacrifice, more able to take risk, more humble, more malleable. The world will take care of you if you are hardworking and humble. And so, as long as we have the basics taken care of, we'll be fine. Especially as we continue to activate a higher brain, then these things become even better and better. Another virtuous cycle. giving, the profound realization that we have an unlimited ability. And that really also ties back to the previous video on love, which is we have an infinite capacity to be loving. We have an infinite capacity for being non-judgmental, unconditionally loving, non-zero sum, right? The not being competitive, realizing that if we all activate each other and help each other become more and more higher brain, more and more creatively joyful, creatively fearless, more and more successful, we can all elevate each other. That's non-zero sum. We have an infinite capacity to support others emotionally, practically, logistically, career-wise, higher brain activation-wise. And so recognize that you have unlimited value in your in by virtue of unlimited capacity to help other people, especially once you get lower brain envy and jealousy and competitiveness out of the way and recognize that that's an evolutionary brain trick of the lower brain. And finally, humor. Like we have infinite access to comedy, right? So you can, I can turn on my Peacock streaming and stream Saturday Night Live episodes whenever I feel like it. It's amazing, right? It's almost miraculous that we have infinite access, YouTube, what have you. We have Netflix, we have infinite access to humor. And it's like, wow, I can almost take any situation and kind of make fun of myself or make fun of the situation or make fun of life and just suddenly I shift into a different part of my higher brain. And so this is my way of reminding myself, you know what? I have enough. I don't need any more. I am infinitely fulfilled, and therefore I have no problem giving up things, whether it's to serve others or it's to take risk creatively. I can take a loss of money, loss of time, loss of status, loss of group, loss of tribe. I can take loss, and that allows me to take more creative risk within which allows me to make other kind of breakthroughs in neural networks, social networks, or products and services or processes. How do I do things? I can keep making things better, and that's pretty cool. Here's another. In fact, let me have you pause it there, and maybe even take some notes and imagine, what of this sort of stimulates you to feel like, yeah, I am really lucky to have that. And that really conjures up emotions. And this is something that I can kind of cycle through from moment to moment throughout the day and really start to build that neural network. So pause it there for a second, and then I'm going to show you another list that kind of may stimulate you to come up with more examples, more granular list. This is more broad, and then we'll get into more of a granular list next. Okay, so here then pause on this one and notice here's another way to categorize it by people, experiences, things, small pleasures, etc. So this may be another way to kind of stimulate the creativity of gratitude. Like how can we be creatively grateful? How can we really notice as many nuances as possible? And then finally you start to realize, wow, like, okay, happiness is actually a state of mind. Happiness does not have to do with circumstances. Our lower brain tricks us with stories that we create that say, well, we are happy and we're happy if we're successful, and we're successful if we are at the top of the hierarchy. We have looks, we have money, we have success, we have relationships, we have friends, we have a friend group, we have a blah, 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 blah. No, that's a made up story. In fact, you can be grateful and happy all the time. And we do not have to be beholden to these stories that say, no, no, this is how we define happiness. It's rising up and not going down. No, that's made up. And so one of the next videos, we'll talk about the notion of false story, which is recognizing that the dopamine drop that's created by the lower brain to manipulate us to get the dopamine and the endorphins based on a story that we created based on society, based on our family, based on biology. We don't have to be beholden to those stories and the narrow definition of what happiness is based on a narrow definition of what success is. We can blow that away. Gratitude helps, but the brain science insight about the lower brain also helps that will be another positive cycle that we start getting is cooling down the false story of the lower brain and those narrow definitions of happiness and success and expanding how much we have infinite access to happiness actually, and that in fact happiness is a state of mind. But then once you feel full, you can take more risk and actually produce even more of a virtuous cycle. Okay, so pause it there for a second and start making a list of the things that really move you that you have and that you can look at on a regular basis. Make multiple copies of that list that moves you, post it all over the place, in the bathroom, in the car, in the on the desk, on the refrigerator, everywhere. So you can like kind of almost meditate on that list and keep activating those neural networks. So pause it there and make some notes. Okay. So this, another way to look at this is it's more than a practice. It's really a different way to see the world, right? It shifts our focus from what's missing to the abundance that's already present. We all have lives that are abundant no matter what the circumstance, because we have abundance internally, we have abundance in our hearts, we have abundance in what we can create in the relationships with the people that are around us. We have abundance in how we can be creative no matter what the circumstances are. And so we recognize and shift to an abundance mentality. And in a busy life, yeah, I like this saying that gratitude kind of creates this sort of oasis of peacefulness, contentment, chaos that's around us. The world is changing so rapidly. It creates a threat condition for the lower brain. Oh no, it's changing fast. It's complex. We may lose out, right? We may lose status and lose affiliation with a group, or lose opportunity, or lose money, or lose time. It's like, who cares? It doesn't matter. I mean, that's a made up story of loss and the risk of loss. We can evolve past that. And so gratitude kind of creates a little bit of space and oasis in the midst of the chaos. So now we can shift back to higher brain and deal with the chaos around us more effectively with more expanded capacity for relationship building and creativity and knowledge acquisition, etc. Finally, it's again, happiness isn't from what we get. It's really about appreciating what we already have. It sounds like probably a Rolling Stones song. I think it's, or maybe it's was that Sheryl Crow. I think my daughter reminded me of those lyrics. It's not getting what you want, but it's kind of appreciating what you already have. So let it fill your heart, and it really transforms how you see situations pretty profoundly. And remember, every single time you do this, you see these branches expand on the neural network. Every time you do this, every second that you do this, especially when there's emotions, you're expanding, in this case, especially the orbital prefrontal cortex. As it becomes bigger and bigger, it just is there all the time, serving you, sometimes unconsciously serving you. The trigger comes in and it automatically gets dissolved by the gratitude network. Who cares? It doesn't matter. And so this is exciting because this is a capacity we can all build infinitely. And it really serves us. That's the game of life, is to shape this brain to become higher brain dominant, to serve our needs in a time of rapid change and chaos. And so finally, you know, keep account. Like, it's very important because your lower brain is very sophisticated and very activated in this time. So it's constantly manipulating energy to get you to withdraw, to not take risk, to not lose what we already have. We have enough. We have enough. So that in some ways the lower brain takes that and says, "We have enough. Don't take risk." We're flipping that and we're saying, "We have so much. We have plenty to lose. Let's take some risk and make life even richer." So keep a track of how many times you do this, because that's one way to outfox the lower brain that's going to distract you with thoughts and loss potential and gain potential. Instead, if we keep track of how many times we do this, try to get to 100 every day, you now are guaranteeing that that gratitude network is expanding. That's gratitude on steroids. And then notice this is a way to add even more emotionality to this process and this incredible habit, which is as these networks expand, you'll notice that you will stay more regulated in the midst of people, situations, and thoughts that might have dysregulated you in the past. Situations, people, and thoughts that would have kind of triggered your lower brain and created a feeling of anxiety and stress, anger, sadness, what have you, all the negative emotions that cause us to withdraw and maybe overreact. This is a way to really catch yourself continuing to expand the neural networks of gratitude and notice, oh, wow, okay, now those networks must have gotten big enough that they're kind of doing things almost in the background. That's super cool because that situation would have really upset me or triggered me. I would have gotten angry if someone would have laughed at me or someone would have criticized something I did, or they started, whenever they start with why did you? It's like, whoa, don't, then you start becoming defensive and you counteract. But instead, when they said why, you're kind of like, huh, yeah, let me think about that and let me see if I can make an adjustment or sorry, I could have done something differently there. You're more tranquil, you're more calm, you're not getting dysregulated and shutting down or overreacting. Instead, you're like, life is good. I'm feeling really good. You need something? Did I mess up? Hey, I'm sorry about that. Let me figure out and fix that. Next time, I'll come up with a better process so I don't make that mistake next time. Thank you for pointing it out to me. I mean, that's a whole different approach, right, to a negative person who's coming at you because you have this nice stabilization neural network in there constantly filtering life and smoothing things out. Okay, so practice this habit. I cannot emphasize how important this is, but you need to make this a neural network, not just a great gratitude once in a while. That's fine. But even better than that is our ability to really make this a prominent part of our higher brain that we stay anchored in and filters all of life and changes our perspective. Okay, see you in the next video. Thanks.